Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together, we watch a sci-fi movie, and we talk about it. It's really quite that simple. And coming up on this week's show is one of the more notable films from 2021. They got a lot of buzz on the interwebs and in the critic circles, and that is Titane from director Julia Ducournau, and I'm probably butchering that name because it's French, and I can't do French as a language. I can't do the sounds that they make. It's impossible. I'm incapable of doing so. But this is the director of Raw, which was kind of a slightly horror movie that I reviewed on Streams After Midnight with Tim. And going into this film, it's like it was maybe a little bit horror, it was maybe a bit sci-fi, but everyone just tended to agree that you couldn't really put it into any kind of genre. But it seemed worth talking about, having not seen it yet. So, I mean, would you agree with that sentiment?
Yes.
Thank you for the elaborate response. It was so in-depth and insightful. Like I don't know how I'm going to top that.
We've been kind of tight-lipped on how we feel about this movie to each other, so... But it is definitely one worth talking about.
Oh, I get it. So you're effectively playing hard to get right now as far as the opinion goes. You're like, no, I'm not giving this up. Like, not,
it's my style.
Not until you ask the question directly am I actually going to tell you.
It's totally not true. I always tell you how I feel about a movie, like, instantly.
Yes. I keep it secret. I like to withhold until the podcast and then unleash it.
I know, that's why I was so surprised at Moonfall.
You were surprised at Moonfall. You knew exactly how I felt. You knew how I felt.
Check the tapes.
You saw it before I did. I'm pretty sure you knew how I felt, like, as you were watching it, like before I saw it. You just knew.
Genuinely surprised.
Okay, well, I'm not. I mean, we're definitely reviewing the anti-Moonfall with this movie, I'll say that much. And by that, I don't mean the moon rises. What I mean is this is not a blockbuster, it's not a Roland Emmerich film. This is the Arthouse foreign film from France with a very Arthouse director doing her best concoction of surrealist drama, textual science fiction, a little bit of Cronenberg body horror in there, like
Brandon Cronenberg.
Both Cronenbergs. I mean, because correct me if I'm wrong, but David Cronenberg did do a movie where people got off on the idea of cars and car accidents.
Crash.
Yeah, so there's even a little bit of that in here as well. Yeah, we'll start spoiler free as we often do. We'll give you warning before we get to spoilers. I feel like this will mostly be the spoiler section though, and we'll just do a little bit of spoiler free because I don't know how much you can talk about this before you start just...
Yeah, it's one of those films.
Yeah, going into the craziness. But it is a movie that is pretty wild. It's pretty crazy. It's getting a lot of buzz. To me, this is a sign. It kind of feels like the director here made Raw, which is a very good movie, and is... You know, it's a bit wild in the sense that it's a bit extreme in its portrayal of like cannibalism, because it's kind of about this vegetarian who is forced to eat some sort of weird meat when she goes to college, but it's all a metaphor. It's all this coming of age metaphor for like letting your wild side out. But she gets this taste for human meat and she starts, and there's a lot of little disgusting moments in the way it sort of handles the topic is really well done. I felt like with this one, she just kind of wanted to go with the weirdest idea she had for her second movie, which is funny because it feels like after this, like, she can't go weirder than this. Like, maybe she can match the weirdness, but I feel like after this she's probably going to be more normal, if anything, as a director. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but...
I have not seen Raw. This is the first of Julie's movies that I've seen.
Julia. Yes.
Julia's films.
Yeah. I mean, the basic premise, to give you some... And this, again, it's a weird movie to give a premise for, but the main character, this woman named Alexia, she is a little girl, is in a car accident, and gets a titanium plate put in her head, right? That's kind of where the title comes from. We cut to her as an adult, and it turns out that she has something of a weird fetish or sexual attraction to vehicles, as well as the fact that she's also maybe a serial killer. But then the actual plot of the movie, once it gets going, is more about her kind of like hiding, and I'll just leave it at that. I don't think we've got to spoil any more than that.
Everything you said is more of the introduction to the
Yes.
film.
It does take a bit of time to, go through all that stuff, and
Sure.
there's definitely some details in it that are a bit, crazy, wild, wacky, extreme, provocative, one might say.
One might say.
All right, let's do it then. Let's ask the question. Tara, my
Yes?
intelligent, witty, and open-minded friend,
Yes, sir.
what did you think of Titane?
I think it's a very good movie. I think it's a very good drama.
Oh,
I think the sci-fi stuff is completely unnecessary to the film. Even the serial killer part is kind of unnecessary to the film. I think there's actually a very good story in this film, and it is very engaging and provocative. And I think some of the visuals, including the more sci-fi stuff, is very fun to watch and very well acted. I mean, that lead actress just gives it her all. And eventually the lead actor is also like very good in it. And all that drama stuff, like, I was really into. The more out there stuff, I just was waiting to see why it was relevant, and I'm sure you'll tell me later on, but I just don't think it's necessary to the movie. Like, I don't think it proved why it needed to be there.
I feel like you're putting me on a bit of on the spot a little bit here by assuming that I'm going to have a great explanation for why everything in this movie's in this movie. I respect that you think I am semi-intelligent and can analyze films.
I think you speak Arthouse a little bit better than me. That's all.
But I feel like you're putting me on the spot here a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I like the movie a lot. I think the director, I loved their previous film, and I think right from the start of this, you feel this strong directorial hand. There's an opening sequence after we jump to, like, the adulthood, the present day stuff, where it's our main character arriving at this. It's like a car show with, like, sexy dancers. Like, that's where she works. But the entire sequence in which she walks into this place, where you're sort of focusing on her back, and she's got it's like a lion on the back of her shirt or something. But the way the camera is sort of like going from her to some of the dancers at the cars, and then going back to her, and then transitions to her being in, like, her full, like, stripper. Not strippers, but I mean, they look like strippers. They're not actually stripping, but they look like strippers.
She's wearing, like, the really large fishnet.
Yeah.
Neon yellow fishnet. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't get. What's the point of those? Like, there's more hole than there is fabric. Like, what's the point?
They emphasize curves.
But anyway, that thing is super stylish, and it feels like there's an energy to it and this flow to it. And then there's sequences later on where there's just really great tension and really great kind of, like, edge of your seat moments. But then it'll handle really quiet drama, and it'll focus on character reactions to moments and these little nuances in the performances that just sort of, like, and it's a really complex, like you say, the drama that's set up in this movie. Once we get into the sort of the middle portion to the end of the movie, all of that is, like, such a unique just setup for the characters and the situation they're in, and the way and what their relationship is to each other, and how complex that is, and, like, the discovery and exploration of those relationships. That is very expertly done, I think, and I think I was always captivated by what was going on in this story. I was always captivated by the character choices and what was happening. And the weird stuff, the sci-fi stuff, I do also think is really well shot. I think it's presented in this really kind of hypnotic, what the hell's going on way. And then it's just kind of there. It's kind of in the background. It kind of lingers until, the very end, where it really more so comes into it. But I was enthralled pretty much immediately. I thought there was a lot of really well done sequences in this. The character was always engaging. It's a character who's tough to, like, get on board with, because she inherently there's some unlikable qualities to her, because she is weird but also a serial killer, and also, like, all these other things. But there's also things to actually be empathetic about, and you sort of understand her better as the movie's going on. And then the other character, Vincent, who we get to, about a third or so in, like, he's also a very interesting character, and he has layers to him, and there's a lot to kind of go into with their, like, pairing and everything that goes on there. So yeah, I liked it a lot. This it's hard to compare to Raw in many ways because Raw was and the actress who was in Raw's in this film, the one with the pierced nipples is
Justine.
Justine was her name in this. Yeah, she was the main character in Raw, but that film was obviously a lot more of well, I mean, it wasn't a normal movie. It was still weird because it was this cannibal thing, but that was more of like maybe a bit more of a heart to it, whereas this has heart, definitely, by the end, and you definitely feel like kind of like what it's saying about its characters and the sort of trauma that it's dealing with and what it's actually getting at. But it's sort of like you have to fight to get to the heart, right? You're sort of like going through the movie, sort of like trying to unlock what the heart of the movie is. Whereas in that, like, I felt like it was much more on its sleeve because it was a character study from the start. Whereas this is still a character study, but it's an intentionally obscured character study because you're going through this lens of what is this weird shit? What is going on? Why is she doing? Oh, she's killing people now. What's happening? Like, there's all these like levels to your like experience going through it. So I liked it a lot.
I knew you would.
What do you want, a medal? Like, the movie was good and then I liked it. Like, I'm a simple man.
I imagine this movie, if I showed it to people I know, most of them would not like the film.
Aye, because I'm smarter than all your other friends.
That is not true.
I hate how confident you said that. I do not appreciate the insinuation.
Don't think of it as like you're dumb. Think of it as I have very smart friends.
Well, I'm sorry. Are you friends with like a physicist and like a neurosurgeon? Is that what you're saying to me right now?
Nope. But I have very smart friends. Some of them just like really, terrible films.
Michael Bay fans is what you're telling me then.
No. Definitely not.
Roland Emmerich fans.
I mean like the Baywatch movie.
Come on. I get some smart points compared to Baywatch movie fans. Come on.
Okay, you get some points. Yeah, so I do like the film. I do agree with everything you said. I just think although visually the sci-fi parts are very like engaging and like stimulating. There's a lot to...
Stimulating, you say? They're stimulating?
I think, yeah, it stimulates the brain. I think it's
stimulates a few organs, I think.
I'm sticking with that word.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm cracking a joke. It's a very sexual film. There's a lot of sexual acts. There's a lot of nudity.
Yes.
There's a lot of that going on.
The dourness is there that I've come to expect from French movies, which it's just part of the game. It's not
a cheery film by any means. No one's going to accuse it of that, I don't think.
No.
Just on the actor who plays Vincent here, I just wanted to mention he looks like a French version of, I think his name's Chris Maloney, the actor.
He was reminding me of somebody.
Yeah, he looks a lot like another actor. I think that's the name I'm thinking of.
Is that the one from Criminal Minds?
Yes, I think he's on Criminal Minds. I never watched that, but yeah, I think he's on that. Yeah. I was getting a lot of him from this dude.
Mm-hmm.
To the point I was like, did he learn French? Did he go off and learn French?
He was reminding me of somebody. It might have been him, but I never really was able to pinpoint it.
Sure. Yeah.
But he was great. I thought he was great in the film.
No, he's very good. The two leads are excellent. Direction's very good. I think the use of music is generally very good. I think it's a movie with ideas and themes, and you do have to think about it a little bit. You do have to pay attention. You do have to, read the subtext. And I'm not saying I understand everything the movie's saying, because this does feel like a movie that is there to be explored for a long time, and people are going to try and crack into it through different lenses and through different ideas. But it does feel like something that is very rich in its concepts.
I'm sure there's some things that maybe I could look up, see what the director said about the movie or something, just to help me out a little bit. But because I am kind of still working through it. I watched it last night, and I spent most of this morning while doing errands just thinking about the film. But there were also things that remind me of the movie. I did drive around in a car today.
Did you ever feel that the car was making a move?
My car and I have a very healthy relationship.
Okay. Do you know, there was a documentary, this was years ago, this was like over a decade ago now, but there was a documentary on UK TV, and I think it was about Americans, and I'm not just saying that to like, you know, pass the blame here.
It's okay.
But
I hope it was mostly Florida.
But it was about a guy who likes to have sex with his car, right? It was a car fetish. And
I've heard about that.
They found like a second guy who did this, and they introduced them to each other. And the only thing I remember about this is that later on one of them snuck out and had sex with the other man's car, and they get into an argument about it. And it's the funniest like thing to me.
I would be upset if someone had sex with my car.
It's just
and I'm not even romantically involved with my vehicle.
I mean, yeah, you just, you know, there's a point where you're just...
You owe me one car wash.
Yeah, there's a point where you're just defacing someone's property, yes. Like, I mean, that's fundamentally what's happening, but obviously to him, it was like a personal, like, like, you assaulted my car. Like, we are now mortal enemies.
Are you able to talk about it without spoilers, where you can explain why this is in the movie?
I don't think so. I think there's some thematic stuff. I think there's I mean, it's all symbolic, it's all metaphor. Like, there's not a reason, like, in plot why there's sci-fi stuff in the movie. It's never explained in the movie or anything like that. It's all just, it's there, it's happening, and it's up for us to interpret it and kind of talk about what it means. So...
Thanks, director.
What is this? Is this the movie director equivalent of when a singer holds out the mic for the crowd to sing instead of that?
I don't know what the equivalent would be. I guess it would be like Sinead O'Connor ripping up a piece of picture of the Pope during her song debut on Saturday Night Live, maybe. What the hell was that about?
Spoilers, I guess.
I think so.
I don't know what else we could say without spoiling things, to be honest. It's such a... You know, it's not quite the same, but in the same way that God told me to, there's a lot of, like, it keeps changing. Oh, I wouldn't say this keeps changing, but there's a lot of things that happen.
It takes right angles all the time. It's like, oh, we're here now. This is what this movie is.
But it definitely, like, does take some turns, especially early on, that I think I wouldn't want to just spoil and say what they are if you've not seen the movie, or at least if you care about spoilers. Obviously, so I know some people will still listen to the spoiler section and just, you know, because they don't care. They're fine with hearing it, which is cool.
This is their way of getting to know the film Titane.
Yes. So spoilers from this point on for Titane. Yeah, that's just one we have to work through this bad boy. It's just one of those movies. The opening scene, although the opening shot, as like the opening titles are starting to play or whatever, is actually just this like long close up going like showing the underneath of a car. But it's so close that unless you really know your cars, you might not even recognize that's what it is, because it's just like, you know, like a shaft here, like a little, you know, bit here. It's just, and eventually it sort of reveals like we're in the past and it's the little girl version of Alexia, and she's actually a little shit. Like she is like it actually took me a minute to realize that she was making an engine noise. I just like, it's one of those things where I think it transitioned from the real noise to her doing it so well that it wasn't until the dad like complained at least once that I was like, oh, she's making the noise. Like, that's her. She's going like, and then she starts kicking his seat, and he tells her to stop. And then she takes off her seatbelt, and he turns to try and get her to sit back down, and then the car gets, you know, the skids, they hit something, and this is what leads to her getting a titanium plate in her head. Her relationship with her father, who does not feel particularly healthy. I wouldn't say it's like super warning sign at this point, mainly just because it still just kind of feels that she's been a little shithead of a child, and he's like just not dealing with it.
She looks really like 8 years old or something, and kicking the back of his seat while he's driving. Yeah, that's irritating, but that's the thing a kid would do. Yeah,
it's more when you get to the adult stage where she's like 30 and they seem to just like hate each other, and they're just like really quiet with each other. But there's a little hint though that she has changed or something, where when they get out of the hospital and she runs up to the car and like kisses the window.
Yeah, she gives it a big hug and kisses it.
Yeah. And so there is this kind of like sick contrast, like going from that to like this sexy car show where there's lots of like stripper looking ladies like dancing over cars, and they're kind of semi-famous. I mean, not famous, that's maybe not quite right, but they're getting
Probably
autographs.
for that crowd.
Yeah, for that crowd, yeah.
I knew a dancer. She would do like go-go dancing and stuff, and she would do car shows. And like she was really popular at the car shows.
Yeah, most people wouldn't recognize her elsewhere, but yeah, like...
No, she was just a model that was always hired to do car shows.
So, yeah, and it's kind of this, you know, like, we're an edgy car show because they're doing sexy dances all over the top of it, and, you know...
And she knows how to dance. Like...
Oh, yeah.
She does a very, very provocative dance.
There's a lot of, like, the hands going through the legs and, like, you know, while she's bent over and then slinking across the car.
Lots of twerking.
Lots of twerking. But like I say, the way this is shot, like, I thought was, like, I really liked this scene visually and just how it was, like, presented.
Yeah, her entrance and stuff and the way people react when they see her.
It makes it...
Yeah, it's doing a lot of showing, not telling.
Yeah, it makes her entrance feel like a big deal. And I think because we just saw her as a child, like, hug and kiss a car, us cutting to this... Because you don't even know that she works here yet. Honestly, it's not until it transitioned to her in the dancer's outfit that I was like, oh, she's actually one of the dancers. Like, I thought she was just here because she likes the cars. Like,
yeah, she looks cool, and she's in a cool place with cool people, with cool cars. Like, it just seemed like she was just walking through it.
Yeah, but she does her dance, and she's in the shower afterwards with Justine, right? Who's also a dancer. We see her briefly. Like, some guy like touches her a little bit, and the security like throws him out. But they're in the shower, and Justine, like, yeah, they're next to each other. It's just one of those, you know, communal showers where there's just a lot of showers, so they're standing next to each other, and she just tries to like say, "Hey, I'm Justine." Just make some small talk, which is, you know, it's surreal to me to think about just making small talk in that situation. You're just standing there butt-ass naked, just be like, "Hey, so I'm so and so."
Well, when it's part of your job and like you do it all the time, like, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, I'm sure this is like they're used to this now, but as someone who never had to go through like showering in school after like PE was never a thing for me, so
we tended to still stay in our bathing suits in school, but I went through boot camp, and boot camp is another story.
She doesn't really respond to her, right? Alexia does not really reply to her, but then there's this weird thing where she drops her soap, which is normally, you know, if this was a prison, we'd be telling a different story here, but she drops the soap, and Justine goes like, "Oh, I'm going to be nice and help her. I'm going to go lean down to pick this up too." Or maybe it's the other way around. I can't remember who drops what and who leans down to help the other one. It doesn't really matter. But the point is that Alexia's hair gets caught in the nipple piercing that Justine has. So they're kind of stuck together, and like she's trying to pull the hair out, and it's just kind of this awkward thing where it's tugging at her nipple.
What a French meet cute.
It is. It's a super weird meet cute. And this one's not too bad. There's a nipple scene later that was making me uncomfortable though.
Yes.
We'll get to that, but yeah, it's this awkward interaction between them that kind of sets them up as knowing each other. I think as we're being introduced to the themes of the movie here, when Alexia goes to her car, she goes out, she signs a few autographs when she's in there, and she's on her way out.
Take some selfies.
Yeah. But when she's on her way out and there's a couple of people wanting autographs, she's like, "No, we're done for the night. I'm going home."
I think the selfie is the only time we see her smile also. And it's like a fake smile.
Yeah, it's a fake smile, yeah.
But it's just the one time that we see her smile is just for, like, she has this alternate personality that people see online.
Well, I mean, I think the whole thing with this introduction, and especially when you combine it with what happens here where this guy follows her, starts chasing after her, she's scared, she runs to the car. You know, it's starting to play this tense, kind of typical, there's a dangerous man, she's out there on her own at night. Obviously it takes a turn when she's got like a big knitting needle she uses as like a hairpin, and she pulls it out and like stabs him in the ear, because he forcibly kisses her, and then she sort of like makes him put his guard down a little by like sort of going along with the kiss, but then she pulls out her needle and like stabs him in the ear, and he dies. And her reaction to this is a little bit like, this doesn't feel like you're not in enough shock that you just killed someone that it feels like the first time, you know, because we don't know she's a killer yet. This is like our first glimpse of this.
Yeah. Her reaction is like, well, I guess this has just happened.
Yeah, and she puts the needle back in her hair, and she goes and like back into the showers to like wash her neck, because he basically had like a seizure almost when he was dying, and she's like washing all the foam off of her and the spit off of her neck. But you know, I think that some of the clear themes that are introduced in this whole introduction is basically the expectation of a woman, the objectification of a woman, and the dangers of being a woman. And obviously the subversion of it here, that she, to survive in this world, is this cold, merciless person who doesn't seem to like anything, doesn't seem to get on with people. And yeah, she obviously protects herself and kills this guy, but it kind of feels like she's always that like this because anything else would make her feel unsafe.
She's very cold and machine-like.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yes, like a car, like titanium. Yeah, but yeah, no, I mean that's like I think that is partially there, and it's right after this. It's when she's in the shower, she hears some noises, and she walks into the shower, and it's very notable here that she doesn't put any like a towel on or any clothes. She walks out the shower completely nude, walks into the main like floor of this place, this warehouse or wherever they've got this car show. This car's headlights are on. She's drawn to the car.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
well, did you see the sweet flames on the side of it?
So it's a very pretty car in a kind of tacky gangsta kind of way. And she goes into the car, and we don't see it at first. We just sort of see the car going up and down, and it's like, wait, what's going on in there? It's like, what's happening? And we cut to a shot of her, and it's like she's like got her hands like wrapped in the seat belts. You know, almost like they're almost like someone's like tied her to a bed, right? And she's moaning, she's groaning, and it's like, this is a sex scene. And we never see anything from the waist down to like imply what is actually interacting with her, if anything. Is it more of a ghost-esque thing happening? But she's having sex with a car, and it's not just like it's not like she's like on the gear stick just doing it herself. The car is screwing her somehow, some way in this scene. The car is taking part in intercourse.
Mm-hmm.
And it's at this point in the movie where I think, if you're out, this is the moment where you're out.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, like if you're into this, if you're like, oh my god, this is so weird, I want to see where this goes, I need to see where this goes, then you're going to be in for it. But
I wonder if it has to do with like the last time we saw her interact with a car, she also showed affection towards it. Even though the car is the thing that almost killed her and caused her to have this titanium thing in her head. It might be like her dad wasn't paying attention to her, got in an accident with the vehicle, and then she loves the vehicle. And then this guy comes up to her, sexually assaults her, and then she has this interaction with the vehicle. Like, is it because like the men in her life, or she just distrusts men, that she turns to machine?
Well, I think it's more specific than that. Like, because to go back to the dad thing, like, it's not so much that he wasn't paying attention. If anything, he was paying too much attention, which is why he crashed.
Well, she was trying to goad him into, like, look at me like a kid.
Ultimately, she feels he's responsible. It's his fault they crashed. I mean, it's not really, it's hers. But she feels that it's his fault that, like, she's in this accident. And it's not the car's fault. The car's just a machine. The car's like an innocent, like, tool in this.
Like an animal.
So
yeah, it's just something you would...
So I think the appeal that maybe she latches onto with the car is that this thing isn't going to betray her on its own. It's not going to do anything malicious to her on its own, right? It's an innocent party in the whole process. And I don't know if like her getting the titanium plate is like she feels more connected to a vehicle now because she is part metal herself.
Maybe. I mean, it could mean like... it could also just mean literal brain damage that has occurred. There's also the thing with, like, she does eventually, like right after this, hook up with Justine, who maybe she feels connected to because there's that incorporation of metal and flesh when she was, like, up and close with her nipple and the nipple piercing. So maybe there is that, flesh and metal turn on for her.
Yeah, I mean, it's notable that when she does try, because we just kind of cut to them together and they're making out, and she lifts up Justine's shirt and she goes immediately for the piercing on her nipple. And this scene was freaking me out actually, because she starts like pulling at it with her teeth, and to the point where I'm like, that looks sore, and then Justine's actually saying, hey, stop that, or like it's to the point where the nipple's been pulled so much that it was like like I was worried that she was going to like rip her nipple, like rip through her nipple, and I was like getting really uneasy about it. I was actually, my hand was ready to block the visual because I like that's nasty to me. But But yeah, she is focusing, like, she has no interest in going downstairs. She has no interest in any other part of her body. It's like, no, this part that's getting metal. That's what she's interested in. That's what she's... And it's almost like this is an attempt for her to do something more normal. This is her trying to reach out to a human being and thinking, oh, maybe this is like a compromise, right? She's got a bit of metal. This is my... And then...
She's not a gross man who's trying to sexually assault me. Like, she seems really into me. In, like, a healthy way.
Yes. It doesn't last very long, obviously. She ultimately can get intimate with her and ultimately kills Justine as well. And apparently she has a lot of roommates in this big fancy house, who she then also goes on to kill almost all of them. One gets away, which is why she ultimately has to go on the run, because there's a survivor, there's someone who knows who she is. I mean, maybe not her... No, they do know her name, I think, ultimately, but...
I'm sure they could figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, she was at the car show. She took selfies with people.
One of the things that we've skipped over, though, is the scenes with the family where she's back at her house and she's living with her parents, and her dad and her are so cold with each other. There's a scene where he comes in and he goes to, like, get whatever he's having for dinner, and he just pulls something out of the fridge, and it's basically just pre-made and it's, like, there for him. And as he's doing this, she is walking around the kitchen pulling out, like, 50 ingredients to, like, have something, like, on her own. And, like, they're and, you know, people can eat different things, that's fine, but, like, it's filmed in this way that it really shows the contrast between them. He's a man in a suit who's got a pre-made meal that's sitting there waiting for him, and it's just ready to go, and she's in, like, a t-shirt and, like, shorts, just sort of going around and like, grabbing a bunch of random different things. Like, she's more chaotic, and that might not be important on its own, but the importance is the contrast and how, like, out of sync they are as people. So I think that's really important. Obviously, the first signs that she's pregnant from the car, might I add, is this first. Because this is the thing, like, she has a little bit of what turns out to be oil, like, on her leg, but it's only on her, like, her underwear, so it's only a quick shot. So I was thinking, oh, it looks a bit dark, but maybe whatever. Like, I didn't think too much of it. It wasn't until later where I was like, oh wait, no, this is, like, black oil that's coming out of her every time that something happens. So that's kind of your first sign. And she, you know, it's just when she's with Justine, she gets a pregnancy test because she starts to, like, vomit, and she's like, these are pregnancy symptoms I'm having, and she's already starting to show, because they don't really make it clear, I don't think, in the movie, but I think this is a sped up thing.
I think so.
Yeah. Because I feel like her stomach was starting to show quite early, and then, you know, I don't know how much time has passed by the time she gives birth at the end, but...
Yeah, I think it takes, like, 3 months to start showing, the way that we see it in the movie anyway. And it seems to happen really fast.
But hey, it's like a supernatural / sci-fi pregnancy, though, so whatever. we can roll with it. I mean, I think the core idea of her, like, literally, because this is the thing, later on in the movie when her stomach is bursting and we're starting to see, like, wounds and holes, we're seeing, like, it's almost like she's got a titanium coating under all of her skin, right? All of her body's got, like, a titanium style coating. And because I mean, I didn't realize that specifically till the end. I actually thought for a while the baby was literally just a ball that was in her stomach, and that's what the metal was we were seeing. But that's not true. Obviously, there's a baby that's born at the end, and no, it's just she has just this metal layer underneath her skin at all times. And I think that part of that is, like, this hard shell that she's had to, like, build. So I think that's the metaphor that is really obvious. I think is that she's had to, like, create a hard shell. It doesn't go into it too much, but there's just a couple of moments with the father, particularly, like, before she decides to burn, when she comes back from this party where she's killed most of the people, and her father's, like, waiting at the window watching. Like, there is an implication here to me that, like, he is abusive, or he was abusive at some point, maybe when she was a child.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if I picked up on that too much. I mean, she's still there, living with them in her, like, I don't know, maybe 30s or something. So I think the actress is in her 30s.
They mentioned in her movie she's 32. They say that in the film.
Okay, yeah. So, like, it could just be, like, they just don't have this relationship because he blames himself for the accident and she blames him for the accident. So they just don't talk. They just never built a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, even if there wasn't abuse per se, it's definitely a very disconnected relationship. And I think, while he may not be as villainous as, like, assaulting her, I think part of the whole rest of the movie...
Could just be neglect also, yeah.
Yeah, part of the whole rest of the movie is that she finds a father figure who actually cares about her. And that's something she never had. And maybe a lot of the reasons why she is the way she is because she never had a proper father figure that that loved her unconditionally no matter what she was or who she was. And, she was missing that. And alternatively, Vincent, when we meet him, the whole idea is that he needs to be a father to someone, right? Specifically to his son that he lost originally. But then as time goes on and he becomes more aware and accepts that this isn't really his son, he still doesn't care. It's like, no, I need to be a father. I need to love someone unconditionally. And maybe it's because he blames himself for his son's disappearance.
I think that's clear.
Yeah, I don't think we ever get they never really go into exactly how he disappeared, do they? They never.
No, I think they said he was 9 when he disappeared.
Yeah.
But that's all. But he's a tough guy. Like, he takes steroids to be stronger. Although he is getting up there in age, he's still I think maybe he's using the steroids to stay strong.
Yeah, it's less about
strong.
It's less about him being built like a tank and more about trying to keep up with all the young men that he works with, because he's a firefighter. He's the captain at a fire station.
Well, I think a lot of it stems from he was supposed to protect his son, and he wasn't. He somehow feels like he's emasculated because he wasn't able to do that. That he's compensating. Yeah,
I think it's part of that, but I think more broadly it's about masculinity in general. I think a lot of this film, especially after this point where she hitchhikes and then realizes she's being chased by authorities, and she decides to alter her appearance. She decides to pretend to be this because she sees the missing poster, and this was really fancy. I thought they had a sort of an ad playing where it was these missing kids who went missing a long time ago. And they digitally sort of try to age them up to say this is what they would look like now in their adult life.
That happens now.
I'm sure it does.
I see it at gas stations and stuff. They'll have, it's not usually a picture that transforms, but they'll have this person would be. They have a picture of the kid, and then they have a picture of what they think the kid would look like now.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt this is a real thing. I'm just I just thought it was neat. A device to use in a movie, and she goes to the bathroom and breaks her own nose, and this is one of these scenes where it lasts quite a while, and she's punching herself repeatedly in the face, and then ultimately starts smashing her head on the sink to alter her appearance, and change her face. She gives herself black eyes, she cuts her hair, and ultimately she's going to pretend to be this missing kid, right? This was it Andre, I think. That's the thing. The first time when Vincent comes to the police station to see her, I should say, well, him, but it's her because we know it's her. They say, we'll do a DNA test, and he goes, "You don't think I'll recognize my own son?" And he opens the curtain, and he just needs to believe it. He wants to believe it, and it's obviously every single person around him for the rest of the film, whether they know or don't know, do feel a bit wary about the whole thing, and they kind of feel that something's off and something's not quite. What some of them obviously figure it out completely, and some of them are just kind of this is a bit weird. But he doesn't need a test. He thinks he can recognize his son, and he's convinced this is his son, so he takes her home.
I sort of suspect that he knew from the beginning that it wasn't his, but he just wanted to believe it so much that he was just that's my son.
And maybe he does, yeah. Maybe he, on some level, he does know, but obviously he's not confronted with the harsh truth of it until later on. I could see that for sure. But he is an interesting character to explore, and I think a lot of her trying to pretend to be a guy and pretend to be this son, and the exploration of masculinity that. One that's just expected of her now because she's supposed to be a guy, so Vincent keeps trying to get her to do certain things. You're going to be a firefighter now. You're going to save lives now. You're going to do this. And we see this contrast when she's hanging around. She's pretending to be his son, and she's hanging around all of his firefighters, who are all pretty built. They intentionally cast a bunch of guys who could only go to the gym for this movie because they wanted these shots of all these guys. Because at one point they have a rave in the floor of the fire station. And it's this weird scene where they're all dancing, and half of them are topless, and
yeah, it's like a Chippendales calendar.
Yeah, and she looks so skinny in the middle of all of them compared to them, and it's all just very, it's all these clashes with the masculinity around him, and the fact that he does take these steroid injections to keep tough, he's supposed to be tough and strong, so he's going to keep being tough and strong, and it made me wonder because there's a scene. Not too long into this portion of the film where she's living with him, and there's a couple of times where she tries to run away and he has to try and keep a hold of her, and
he locks her in her room too,
and which it doesn't come across as malicious or anything like that because This is
No,
a
he
kid.
just doesn't want his son to
Yeah.
run away again.
And she does seem flaky. You know, she seems like she's going to run away, and she does try.
She does, yeah. She jumps out of the car when it's still moving.
Yeah. So you know, it comes across more as no, my son is disturbed, and I'm trying to like do what's right for him by keeping him like locked up, not because he's being cruel. It never comes across as he's like some creep around like that. Although there's a couple of, but the first time it cut to his bare ass as he's injecting himself, I thought, oh, is this guy into some stuff? Like, where are we going with this? She goes into like, it's like, because you know, his family used to live here, right? He's lived at this fire station for a long time, seemingly, right? Ever since his son was a little kid, and his wife has left. His wife is not in the picture anymore, and
Probably because they lost a kid.
yeah, that probably broke them up. Because we see her later on, and it kind of sounds like him wanting to stay here where they stayed with him was like a breaking point for her. She just couldn't. She didn't want to be around where they lived as a family. Maybe it was more than that as well, but that seems to be part
Well, she
of it.
mentions, like, you know, how can you be next to his room where you could still smell him? Stuff like that.
So there's a scene though where she's going through like his bedroom, and she finds this dress, and she like, oh, this is a nice yellow dress, and she puts it on. Of course, I'm thinking as I'm like, he's going to walk in, and his, you know, quote unquote son is going to be standing there in this yellow dress.
This maternity dress.
Yeah, and he
And
comes
she's
in.
very pregnant at this point.
Yeah, but she's taping down. Like, it actually gets really unrealistic later on in the movie, like how much she's supposedly taping this down, because she's like 8 months pregnant.
It looks so painful every time.
Yeah, but then you cut to her in like the fire station
And
with
her
the guys.
boobs are getting bigger also, so she has to like tape those down, and they probably hurt so much because they're full of, well, oil.
Yeah, but it cuts to the fire station later on, and obviously the actress isn't really pregnant or anything, so she's just not wearing anything, like any of the prosthetics or whatever, when she's in these scenes. And I'm like, I don't physically believe that you could tape that stomach down this much, because you just look skinny
I'm
here.
curious, like, if that is a thing that people can do, because some people, like, I mean, believe it or not, like, are not able to even know that they're pregnant, and they're not. It's not because they're super overweight. Like, sometimes people just don't put on a lot. But at the same time, like, we clearly see her with the prosthetics. She's a big girl. There's a big belly.
Yes. So he's wearing this dress in the bedroom, right? His mum's, well, the wife's dress, and in walks Vincent, and he actually laughs at this at first, and he pulls out this photograph of his son as a little boy trying on this same dress. And first of all, it's like, okay, so he's laughing at this because on the one hand you could read this as, oh, she luckily did something that his son did once upon a time, so he's reading this as like him remembering like something from his past, and he's sort of affectionate about it. But it did make me wonder if, like, I wonder if his son actually was maybe like doing things like this, and maybe part of like his redemption of this and why he feels so guilty is maybe he didn't react well to his son being maybe more effeminate than perhaps
I
he wanted.
was getting, like, maybe, I mean, I can't speak too much about this, but, like, I was wondering if this was supposed to be a bit of a trans allegory also for, like, people who, because she obviously has to disguise her gender, and she chooses to become this man's son for survival's sake, but he sees her as his son and, like, treats her as his son. And then it could be, like, because his son maybe had these qualities of, maybe he did identify as female, that even though he sees his son in her, maybe he recognizes that she is female, but still, like, well, my son had that also.
Yeah, I mean, I never considered that it was. I mean, I
Well,
kind
so
of.
much of this film is about, like, gender roles and masculinity, and, like, what we expect from you know, her in the beginning, where she's this, like, beautiful model, versus what she, you know, becomes.
Yeah, but I don't like. I agree. This is an interesting lens to look at it through, and I think it works for Vincent's side of the story. I don't necessarily think that her story though is about that, because I think she is like who she is. Like I think that's the point. Like the scene later on where they're at the rave and she goes up and they put her on the fire engine, and because she's turned on by cars, she starts sexy dancing. And
yeah, all the guys are confused.
yeah, they're all just like what's happening?
But can't look away.
They're like, this is so confusing. Why is the boss's son suddenly doing this weird sexy dance?
And he's great at it.
Yes, this is clearly something he's done before. Like, I think she very much is her. So I think what you're saying might be in there, and it might be in there for one side of it, specifically like Vincent and how he maybe treated his son, who maybe son. And I don't even necessarily think that the son had to be completely either trans or identifying as anything different. It could just be early signs of something like that. It could be, maybe just he played with a doll one time, he put on a dress one time, and like, he's a manly man. He got worried. He goes, "Oh no, my boy, no, you're a man."
Yeah.
Like, it could have just been something as simple as that, rather than like. But it could. I mean, maybe it was something where this child was going to grow up to realize, no, I'm not. I'm not supposed to be a guy. I'm supposed to be something else. I don't know, but I mean, it could be like, and I think that still fits with the idea of like how he accepts her as his son, and it fits with all these themes that are going on. Like that's totally something that's there. I think from her side of it though, I don't think like her. I think her hiding as a man is less to do with who she is and more to do with the pressures on her and like her being her and what that entails, and what like how people react to her. When she's dancing early on, she gets these creeps that come after her. She has this hard shell because men around her are dangerous. She doesn't trust men because of who her father was and how her father was with her. Whether that was abusive or whether that was just he was a bit of a dick. I mean, again, you can sort of read into that as much as you want. I think it's open to sort of like think about it. Well, I think what's part of what makes this movie kind of special to me, and what I think makes the drama between these two characters work so well, is that both of them fill a role that the other one really needs. But it doesn't necessarily mean that each one is exactly what the other person needed, like on paper. Like, because the whole point is that he needed to feel like he loved someone unconditionally no matter who they were. So the idea that he gives this love to her, even once he does know that it's her, and he knows it's Alexia, and he says to her, when the towel drops, and he's like, you're my son no matter what. I don't care who you are, right? Do you understand that? And she's like, yeah. And she mostly doesn't talk when she's pretending to be the son. It's not until quite late on.
Yeah, she doesn't want to give it away. Like, maybe the voice would give it away.
She has to do her Batman voice. Yes, I'm Andre. Wee. And it's notable as well that she does try to abort this, potential baby.
Oh yeah, that's a really awful scene.
She takes that knitting needle and she's
going straight for the cervix.
Yeah, she just goes for it. But it doesn't work, obviously. And she does sort of become more attached. She sort of like holds her stomach. But
she apologizes when she like starts to wrap it.
Yeah. There's a lot of gross scenes though of her like scratching at her belly, and there's a lot of like, scratches and cuts and holes, and there's like black goo or oil coming out of orifices. You see a little bit of chrome. Well, I say chrome, titanium. They're sneaking out through the wounds and stuff like that. It's pretty nasty.
Yeah, there's some real body horror. I mean, we got it with the kills also, but
obviously Alexia as a character is not like morally good in the sense that she's murdering people. She's murdered
innocent people.
Yeah.
I mean, the first guy we see, like, yeah, he was attacking her, but didn't deserve a brutal death like that unless that was her only option.
Yeah, but then later on she just starts murdering people.
But then she starts murdering people, and then we hear on the radio that there's been a string of murders for a while. Yeah,
and we presume that it's her.
It's her.
Yeah. And they never confirm it one way or the other. But it like,
I assume it's there to let you know that this is not her first time.
And it's very like, and a lot of the characters, even the ones that are just, because there's the guy who, so she kills Justine and she chases up the girl into the bathroom. And while she's in the bathroom, this guy comes out butt-ass naked. And he's this kind of bigger guy, he's quite portly. And he's sort of he's completely naked, but he's holding his hands over his crotch to sort of like be polite. But he seems quite nervous and he seems quite shy, and it just sort of like, and she hugs him and she says she's not feeling great or whatever, and she's like, hey, did you want my bed? Like, and it doesn't come off across as creepy. He's just trying to be nice.
Just like, you can lay down.
Yeah. And then she kills him while she's hugging him, and it's like, this guy felt like a gentle giant. You know, I mean, I know he was, I know he was completely naked, but it feels like they were just having some sort of weird like sex party or something in this house.
Yeah,
like so it's a bunch of
some French thing, I don't know.
Yeah, some free-going French roommates all just having weird sex with each other. And it's notable as well that when she struggles with the woman who tries to escape, she gets her head hit against the wall. And the doctor at the start did say that the titanium plate will be fine as long as there's not any like violent like impact. So you're sort of left. I thought it was going to bring it up more, but I think it's maybe just there for a little bit of like, oh, this is where things really start changing for her, because this is moved, and like either her connection to the titanium's corrupted now, or maybe I don't know, like she's unlocked. she knows who she is now or something like that.
I guess. I mean, she doesn't really kill again after that, except for like she does attack her father figure.
She's tempted to. She almost does, because she runs away, and she gets on a bus at one point in the movie, and there's this other woman on the bus with her who she doesn't speak to. I mean, she's still like in her like her get up, so she's still like meant to be just a skinny guy, but this other woman's on the bus. And this drunk group of guys gets on this bus, and they go up the back of the coach, and they start like catcalling and heckling the woman, and just saying a bunch of really awful things. And I mean, if I was her, I'd probably get off that bus and wait for the next one, with how bad it was.
Yeah, but like, it's also just something that women deal with. I think the whole point of that is to show that she's not dealing with it anymore because she looks like a man. Like, that's the only way you can get out of it.
This
I mean, her job before was to be catcalled.
This is the point where she decides to stay with Vincent. This is the point where she goes back. She makes the choice to turn back. So yeah, you're right. That's the point of the scene, is she's like, wait, this is... And I took it as kind of cruel, because part of me was thinking, hey, you're pretty tough. Like, why don't you protect her? Like, protect this innocent woman on the bus. And so
I don't think she feels connection to people.
No, she doesn't. She's cold and distant.
She doesn't have any kind of empathy for it.
But when she gets off the bus, you know, when the bus drives away and it's revealed that she got off, I was like, damn, that's a bit cold. Like, you just left her with these guys on her own.
Well, I mean, she's already murdered a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think she just doesn't have the capacity to feel empathy for people. Like, so maybe she sees that woman and she's just relieved that she's not going through that experience herself.
At least not yet. I mean, I think by the end of the movie, Vincent like sort of breaks through.
Yeah, that's the point of having like a family or father figure, you know.
Yeah, because he does ultimately love her unconditionally, because she's worried like that he's going to find out, and then when he eventually sort of sees it and just decides not to care, and it then is confronted with like all the guys like just standing in shock as she's doing this sexy dance. Because he walks in, you know, eventually and sees it, and he's just like, this is, like, how do I deal with this? Like,
yeah, he walks away. But I think he already knows at that point that who she is.
No,
or at least that she's not.
He does. But he's not seen her be... Well, he's not seen her be effeminate, but he's also not seen her kind of reveal it to everyone else. Because I think that's the main point of this scene, is that everyone else now is seeing that this is not really his son, or who she was supposed to be. And he actually does this really dark thing where he spits up booze on himself and just sets himself on fire. Like, it's just a little fire, and he puts it out quickly, where he's like, oh shit, I shouldn't have done this, I made a huge mistake. But, like, you know, it shows that he's in a really dark place, and there's...
Yeah, he's definitely depressed.
And
still.
And, you know, he does have a bit of a dark side at one point, because he does kind of get someone killed because there's the one guy who works for him who is basically figured it out.
Yeah, I sort of felt like maybe Vincent had been a bit of a father figure for him, and I think there was a bit of jealousy that his son had returned and now was getting all of his attention. Sure. And like, he kind of figured things out, but I think he was looking for something, because I kind of suspect that maybe Vincent was like giving him attention like he would a son, his missing son. And now that his missing son is, you know, back.
Yeah, well, that explains this character's motivations, but like Vincent's motivations in his saying, here, hold this propane tank in this middle of the burning forest. Like, you know, that felt, because this is right after he tries to talk to him about his son. There's like a scene before that where he tries to say, hey, you want to know the truth about this your son here?
I mean, he did say that I would kill anybody to protect you, including myself.
He did say that
to Alexia.
So he's not squeaky clean, and that he does let this guy blow up. Like this is a scene that happens in the movie.
Although that kid should have known better not to hold the propane tank.
Yeah, this is literally your job.
He's like, should we secure this? What the hell do you think?
I mean, they do make it clear earlier on, because he gives this speech to them where he says, you know, who am I to you guys? I'm God, which makes my son Jesus. And Jesus will speak when he has something to say. That's the speech he gives. So I guess it sort of sets us up to think that they will, like, even if it's kind of a stupid order, they'll kind of go along with them to a point because they just respect them so much and trust them. But yeah, I guess this guy killed. Again, really good visual scene. It's a very different.
The big explosive.
Yeah,
yeah. It's
a very different, because obviously a lot of this movie's moody and dark and, like, you know, this is a very different type of scene to compare to the rest of it. Still with that art house touch and the way it's captured, but still it's a lot of fire, which is different inherently. And
there's no women. There's no female firefighters.
No.
Which I thought was an interesting point, because I mean I've heard the criticism before about, like, oh, women want equal rights, but, like, would you trust a woman firefighter? Like, if they're not physically strong enough, and you know, should they have that job? And it's like, well, first of all, like, firefighters do more than just lift things, and they tend to work in groups. So yeah, it'll probably be fine. But I thought that was a conscious decision to make, to purposely do that for that type of argument that used to be very common.
And it ties into, you know, him taking steroids. It's not just that we see him taking steroids to try and keep up. We see him at night, like, after he's taken them, he's, like, trying to, like, jump up onto the bar and pull himself up, and he gets frustrated that he can't do it anymore, and he's trying to, like, no, I need to keep up with these young guys. I need to, like, be tough and big. And
he even, like, overdoses on steroids, he's just got to be strong.
And, you know, it's Alexia who kind of comes back and ultimately saves him. You know, she holds him, and it kind of becomes this codependent relationship. Again, it's this idea that they both need something, and he ultimately is going to, because, you know, when she dies giving birth at the end, like, he's got this baby. He's going to be a father now. He's got a baby to, like, look after.
My metal boy.
Yeah, the baby who has, like, a metal spinal cord and at least a bit of metal in his head. So we got, like, a cyborg baby at the end.
The demon seed.
The demon seed. Well, that's the thing, because I'd heard someone compare it to demon seed, I was thinking, like, is there something behind this that's done this to her that they're going to reveal later in the film? And it never did. Like, it never, like, gave us, like, there's some, like, weird, like, fetish.
It was Proteus. Proteus was the car.
But it makes sure, because this is the thing, like, it's a really awkward scene where she, after the dancing on the fire truck scene, she has sex with the fire truck, and by that I mean we just sort of see her, like, having an orgasm in the front of the, you know, the truck, and then she starts to, like, get, you know, go into labor effectively. She has great pain, she vomits, her oil breaks, she goes in to see him and just sort of, like, lays down next to him, and you can see on his shirt or his chest he's got, like, burn marks because he's just, you know, his shirt was on fire the night before. She tries to kiss him. She kisses him on the cheek at first, and she kisses him on the mouth.
She says she loves him, and she shows affection in the only way that she knows how, I think, is just to kiss him. And he replicates. He says, "I love you too," but, you know, before the kissing really starts. But then obviously when she tries to make it more of a romantic kiss, he pushes her away and is like, "No, that's not what this is." Yeah. She goes into great pain, and it's like, "Oh shit, this is labor." And, you know, she's butt ass naked. He's, like, just in his, like, shorts or whatever he's wearing at this point. And, like, by the way, I'm just thinking ahead to when I edit this. I'm going to have to use so many black boxes to, like, cover naughty bits if I put clips of these scenes in, because there's just scenes where, like, she's naked the whole time. But, like, and he's like, "No, come on, push," and, like, he holds her hands, and he's there for her, and he's like, "No, push, like, I'm here, you're doing great," and it's very supportive. Like, it's as weird and as extreme as this weird, like, robotic pregnancy is. I mean, you see her belly and it's just ripping as she's pushing, like, you could see, like, she's not going to push this big metal ball out of her. She's probably not going to make it through this.
And I don't know if there's something to be said there about rebirth or something, like, you know, like, she was never really quite going to, like, she ultimately got what she needed in life by. I guess what I'm trying to say is this is like a rebirth for her, right? So the idea being that now she's finally had a father figure. Like the metaphor is she is reborn into a new life that can be loving, that can be normal, that can find normal relationships.
There is a scene where she does save somebody also through CPR.
That's true, yeah, because she's basically like a trainee, like fireman for like a lot of the movie, and is taking on a few jobs. And the main one is that they're taken out to this guy's overdosed, and it's his elderly mother who's like called them, and they come out, and while they're resuscitating the guy and they've got like the apparatus out and stuff, the old woman croaks, like just or you know, that's the word he uses in the subtitles anyway. It's like now she's croaking great, and it's like, okay, son, you're gonna have to do something, like administer some CPR, like push on her chest and breathe into, you know,
do it to the Macarena.
Yeah, because she doesn't know how to count the number of presses. It's like, you know the Macarena? Right, I'll do it to the Macarena. So every time you say Macarena, you need to go down and give her another breath. Sure enough, eventually it resuscitates this woman. And I do think this is an important step. It's like he's taught her how to save a life when all she's done all movie. Murder. Yeah. And there's kind of a dark irony because there's an implication that her real father's a doctor earlier on, right?
Yeah.
Because when she said she's got a sore stomach, the mum was like, "Oh, I'll get your dad to check you out." You know, the implication being, "Oh, he can do that."
And he does like the pregnancy check.
Yeah.
He's checking around like the stomach and the womb, and he says she's fine. He gives her the all clear. So clearly, this pregnancy is also unusual in that he's not able to detect it.
I mean, I'm willing to believe that given the circumstances.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's a good scene to bring up because one, it's a good bonding moment for them because he's so proud, like because it worked.
Well, it's also a big change for her, and like she has this father figure who's actually nurturing and loving, and is like, look at the contrast between having a father figure that is not versus him.
I suppose one way to look at it is that he's actually trying to pass on his skill set and knowledge, and he's successfully done it in this scene, and he's very proud afterwards and hugs her, and it's this like nice moment. Whereas her actual father, as a doctor, seems to have passed on nothing to her. Like, it didn't want to share his expertise, didn't want to pass down his knowledge. Not that doctors train their own kids to be doctors. That's not how it works. But you know what I mean. Like, it's a symbolic kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to share who he is with his child. He wants to like pass on his knowledge. And sure, I'm sure if his kid said, "I want to be a firefighter. I want to, go like, I don't know, be an architect or something," I'm sure he'd be like, "Yeah, sure, go do that." But
yeah.
They're in a place where all he knows what to do is to like try and pass on who he is and give him this chance. Him be the theoretical him, and it's actually Alexia. But
yes,
I think it's a bizarrely beautiful story about some really flawed characters in a really cold movie, but ultimately it's kind of heartfelt by the end because it's like, they both needed something, and they were able to find it in each other.
She's not an easy character to root for in the beginning, but I never found myself rooting against her.
No, I wonder if that's partly because you kind of have to read the movie because of the science fiction element, which is very metaphorical. I wonder if you just sort of read the movie as an allegory and as a metaphor, as opposed to sort of treating it like a story where, I need to like root for characters in the same way that I would, I hope the good guy beats the bad guy and saves the day. Like, it's not that type of movie.
No.
By any means. So maybe that's okay.
But why is the car stuff in it?
Like I say, there's a lot of metaphorical stuff here about her being reborn. There's a lot of stuff here about like finding comfort in cold machinery as opposed to other humans. So that's what she feels connections with, and that's ultimately like, it's almost like by the time she realizes his humanity and like with Vincent, she's already went too far in the other direction and can't be saved from that. So this baby from her in the car is the consequence of that. But this rebirth of her has a chance to go on with Vincent and actually have some kind of normal life. How he explains where he got this baby, or the weird qualities the baby has, or the dead woman in his play. I mean,
that's for the sequel.
Titane 2.
I mean, if she's got motor oil instead of milk, does he have to give the baby a bottle of motor oil? 10W30 or something?
Yeah, I think
full synthetic, please.
These are fun to think about, but I don't suspect we're supposed to. They're not important questions for
The
the
baby
movie
needs an oil change
itself.
every 5,000 miles. That's diaper change code.
Yes, or nappy change for people who use the word nappy instead.
You Brits.
Nappy, you take them out in a pram.
A pram?
A pram.
Oh, yeah. We had that when I was a kid.
So is that in Canada as well? Do you use prams?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Not just strollers
We're very British up there.
Apparently, yeah. Canada, it's a weird concoction of kind of American, kind of French, kind of British. It's
Yeah.
it's an odd combination, but hey.
But we're all nice,
Yeah.
except for some of the truck drivers. Although, actually, they're quite nice also. They're just kind of dicks. But they're nice when they're dicks.
I was just thinking to myself, do I make a reference to that when you just said that?
I watched some clips and they're always like, I'm sorry I have to use the word, but I'm calling you bitches.
Very apologetically assholes.
Oh, why you gotta be so Canadian? Those are my people.
I think the movie's well. I think it's a very art house and expertly directed film that has a lot of thought behind it. Has great performances. It has a really good character study that is very metaphorical, right? I mean, you have to go in knowing that, but it's kind of, it has kind of that wildness of A God Told Me To, but is directed like an A24 movie.
Yeah.
And
that makes sense.
And that is kind of a wonderful combination, honestly. Like I'm into it. I like both of those things. So, and it's a marriage made in heaven.
It's a Peter movie. I knew it when I watched it.
And I mean, it's a pretty Peter movie. I wouldn't say it's like a full Peter movie, but it's a fairly Peter movie. I'll say
true.
that. I'll say that.
Is missing. I mean, she's sort of a slasher.
She needs to put on a hockey mask.
If she was wearing a hockey mask, yeah.
Okay. Okay. I can see it. Like I say, I mean, there's probably more in here that we've not touched on, but I do think an exploration of what it is to be a woman, the expectations of her being a woman, her lack of connection with supportive men in her life, and like obviously finding that. But then from the other perspective, from Vince's perspective, like the idea of masculinity, which ties into the toxic men that are in her life as well, obviously, because like you're part of why they're problematic is because they're over reliance on their masculinity. You have all those themes at play. You have kind of your flavor with the science fiction element, which I do think fits in the movie. Like I think it actually it's like a ticking time bomb for the character. Is this weird pregnancy that's sort of there, but also it goes hand in hand with the ticking time bomb of Vincent finding out who she really is and like the mess that's going to create. And it's actually so relieving that he accepts her. Like at first he accepts her and says, I don't care, I'm going to pretend you're my son anyway, but then ultimately by the end accepts her for just who she is and not like the fake son.
Yeah, he calls her by her name.
Yeah. Because she says my name's Alexia, and he's like, okay, Alexia, push. Ultimately, yeah, it's kind of sweet in the end, bizarrely. Although she does die. But like I say, rebirth. It's all about rebirth. Joe, what we need? We need
You need the baby to look at the camera and go, I live.
Excellent reference to Demon Seed, which is all watch.
But why not make this movie like if you still had the same film except she was just pregnant with not a car baby but like a regular baby. Like maybe she had some sort of abuse or rape or something that happened, or even just like consensual sex, got pregnant and just had to deal with this. Like none of the drama would change in my mind.
It would a bit, because I think part of it is that she doesn't have connections with people. I mean, it would work with, if it was, let's say her father abused her and it was his baby, like it would probably work in that way, because it wasn't like a choice, it wasn't a romantic connection with someone. I think if it's consensual, it takes away from part of like her journey in finding, like, because she doesn't have connections with people. That's like part of the character. I mean, maybe you could read it as like he did abuse her like recently, and that the baby, it's not really a car baby. It's like that's what we're seeing. We're seeing this like metaphor of it, because maybe in reality none of this is true. Maybe it is just a regular baby, and at the end it is just a regular baby he's holding, but the whole time to her it's this. So that's what we see. You could read it that way if you want. But because it makes the movie more interesting is the short answer I can give you. But here's the thing though, like, I think if you take it out, it loses its personality in a lot of ways.
I mean, I think the drama is the thing that makes the movie work. The relationships work.
No, you're right.
And I think you could still be cold towards people and then have this humanity brought out of you by having love in your life, and also like her accepting that she is pregnant and giving birth to new life.
No, no, you're right. But the thing is that that's all the foundational drama. That has to work anyway, right? So what effectively you're doing here is you're saying that the drama is good and it works regardless of the extra element that's there.
I mean, I suppose you can kind of make the comparison to Alien, although I know we've had this discussion, and although you agree that these elements are in the movie, they are not intentional, about like the fear of childbirth and just having this thing in you that doesn't feel like it should be there.
Well, hold on a second. It's not I think they're unintentional completely. I just don't think they were ever in the original script. They're not in the writing.
Okay.
I think that, like, all of those maternal and like reproductive cycle stuff is intentional by Geiger. I don't think Ridley Scott didn't recognize that some of these themes were there when he was making the movie, but it wasn't written into the script for sure.
Well, in any case, like the idea of having something growing inside of you that feels like alien or like it shouldn't be there, or there's something wrong with your body when it's creating this new life, and that you have to go through this excruciating thing in order to have something come out of you that's alive.
Doesn't this also partly tie into the idea that she feels different because because this is the thing, like her head doesn't heal around the titanium plate. It's just, she's got this constant like scar and like part of her head. As part of this idea that she's always felt different to everyone else, part of this. So this pregnancy inherently is different.
Sure. I mean, my thing was that I was trying to get to is that I just don't think that, like, although I don't think it's necessary for her to have a metal baby, I think that, okay, if you're going to make it different than in sci-fi, is the reason for it because she's not connecting to it as a human. Like, to her, it's this thing that she has to choose to like love because otherwise it's just this thing that she's trying to, forcefully abort in a really like crude way, or trying to hide or trying to push away, or like there's no real point where she feels like she loves the baby until like much later.
Yeah. I mean, the difference is already there, though, because of her attraction to the cars in the first place, and because of her weird... But it is notable that, like, it does happen after an incident with a man, that she seeks comfort in, like, gratification in a car. Mm-hmm. But, like, I think that plays into what you just said. Like, I disagree. I mean, I'm not saying I disagree that the movie would work without the science fiction element, but I think I disagree with your desire to, like try and prove that it doesn't need to be there, because
no, I'm trying to prove that it needs to be there, but I don't think it does. Like, your justification is that it makes it more interesting. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's true, because God, hold on, much like God told me to, you go like, this is so batshit insane, like, okay, I'm going to go get into it. But it does also force you to think like, okay, but why is it there? Why is there motor oil instead of milk? Why is this a machine?
I explained before that why it's interesting. I didn't just say it's interesting and move on. Like,
the interesting line that you gave found to me to be a little defeatist. Like, well, it's more interesting that way.
Well, because I've already explained it, and I feel like you're still not convinced, so I'm not going to convince you now. Well, fine, you just disagree, but like that's just we're at impasse then.
Okay.
Oh dear. I suppose we can rate the film at this
Sure.
juncture.
I'll go first. I think that the movie is good. I think it's worth watching. I think the drama is 10 out of 10. Like, it's a great study of humans and character and our flawed natures and the importance of love in our life and family and people and having someone who supports us. And I think that's really well acted, well written, excellent. I think the sci-fi stuff is like a 5 out of 10, maybe even lower. So I am going to be nice and give it a 7.
I think your determination to separate the drama and the quote-unquote sci-fi stuff is really weird to me, but I think it's great performances. I think it's expertly directed. I think it has something to say. I can feel the director exploring numerous themes as I'm watching it. I can't claim to catch everything in it because I feel like this is something that if you watch it a few times, you're probably going to start to like, more things will click in the second viewing because you've got ideas from later in the film in your head as you're watching the early stuff. And to me, like, everything with the car connection and her feeling connected more to a machine than she does other people is an important part of the film because it's part of the identity of it. It's part of, if you take that away from it, yeah, you can still make the drama with the raw makeup of what makes the characters click. You can do that, but you're not making Titane. You're making a different film at that point. This director wanted to do something that had symbolism in it, and like, you can roll your eyes because you don't like symbolism, but ultimately that doesn't.
I've never said that.
Well, the look you just gave me when I said the word symbolism told me that.
No, the look was for like, well, then you're not making Titane anymore. I think that's a silly answer.
But you're not, though. Like, that's just saying why does a certain director always like to do this type of shot, or and that I mean, maybe that's not a perfect comparison, but like the car stuff is in there and it makes sense to me. She bonds with machines because she can't connect with humans, right? It's that's the fundamental part. Sure,
I mean, that's part that I got when I watched it.
And she forms this bond, right, out of that, partially also because she also has a part metal of herself. She forms this hard shell, which again, I think you have to read this very symbolically rather than literally, which is, she's had to put on this tough exterior, which is why she's so tough and cold. Perhaps it's why she does kill people. I mean, arguably in that opening scene, you could say that as a child, she almost kills her father. Like, that very easily could have ended in his death. Had he just swerved slightly differently, or the car flipped over, or whatever. Like, there's lots of outcomes to that. But I do think it is an important part of the film, and I think it would be robbed of a lot of what it is if you just took it out and sort of made it work without it. It would still be good, it would still work, but just working's not what a good film is. Like, it's going beyond working. Die Hard doesn't just work. Alien doesn't just work. They're better than just working. So
yeah, but also everything makes sense in those films. There's a little too much upstream color in this for me.
Also a good movie, so I don't know.
No, it's not.
I don't know what your problem is.
The sci-fi part of it is too close to the sci-fi in that film.
Oh god. Have you watched much David Lynch? I'm just like,
I've seen every film of his.
I'm just curious as to how you feel about some of like his films, just in the sense, like, I don't know.
That was a lie. I actually have only seen Dune. Yeah. Oh no, I've seen Mulholland Drive, but it's been so long.
Yeah, I love Mulholland Drive. I'm
not anti Arthouse, okay?
Well, it feels like this attitude to me just feels like like Joe. Someone might accuse me because I like Arthouse of being snooty. You're being like anti-snooty. This is like this is the snooty version of anti-snooty. Does that make sense?
Look, I think something can be very well directed and beautiful and not make sense and still like be a wonderful experience in the movie theater. But I think if you're going to make a point about something, like, they should at least, connect to each other in a way that is, I don't want to say think too much about it, but I don't.
You want a Roland Emmerich film is what you're saying.
Well, look, Moonfall was great. And that's a high bar.
Moonfall was trash. Trash. But
I don't know. Like, I think sometimes you can go too far in one direction to where you're like, okay, well, you've lost me now. Like,
okay.
I love Arthouse films, and I'm all for more of them. And if I think that I do pretty well at them, but I think sometimes like you can go a little too far in one direction and forget your audience a bit.
And all that's left to say is I disagree with your assessment of part of this film. Then we can leave it at that. And that's not to say that I don't think some art house can be up its own ass or like go to
upstream color.
No, upstream. That's not what I'm trying to say. Although this is better than upstream color. I want to make that clear. This is a better film.
I think so too.
But there's art house where you can just feel like someone doesn't know what they're doing and just try to be artsy and you could. This director knows what she's doing. She is very good, and
yeah.
I feel like I'm in confident hands at both times now that I've watched one of her films. I'm looking forward to whatever she does next. 8.5 is what I'm going to give it. All of that was part of my rating. That rant and debate. But 8.5. So.
What's coming up next time?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
You're giving me work to do. I'll go check. You tell them about Patreon. I'll look up. You tell them about Patreon.
That's right, Peter. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildFuzzTV. And if you donate as low as $1 per month, you will get access to movies that I understand. Like Judge Dredd.
Whoa. I'm sure there's some of the... Robot Vampire you did not understand.
Robot Vampire was a tough one, I'll admit, yeah. That one was a little too art house for me, I'll admit.
That was not art house. That was like... two like orangutans in a cage somewhere kind of like wrote a script by throwing shit at a wall, and that's what we got.
It was a very interesting film. Actually not a very good review from us. I suggest you skip that one.
It was too incoherent to remember or anything, so we ended up just...
It really was not fun. It was not easy to talk about. But the rest of them are great. Our newest one is The Guyver. If you're a fan of Power Rangers, you'll sure enjoy this one. If you like Power Rangers but wanted it to be a hard R, you'll enjoy The Guyver.
Actually, without the Zords though, I don't want to get people excited at the Zords. There's no mechs
Zords
or anything like that. Yeah.
No. It's like Power Rangers in the suits.
Yes, with the
plus Jeffrey Combs,
Punch Kicky. Yeah.
And David Gale, who hams it up so good.
I love how you didn't mention Mark Hamill, who's clearly the biggest name in the movie.
And yeah, Luke Skywalker's in it. It's one of those awkward years for him though, where he doesn't quite know what his look is or what his style is. And if you donate $5 per month, you'll get to vote on what we watch once a month, and you'll be able to get these reviews a day early. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll thank our Patreon producers for the month as well. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Board Now, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Treisman, and Alison M. Fordyce. Thank you to you all. So yeah, coming up next time, we have something a bit lighter. We are finally returning to a franchise that we've been working through very gradually, and that is The Invisible Man's Revenge is up next on the show. So look forward to that.
Slow and steady with these Invisible Man movies.
They can be spread out. They're fine. So we'll get to that next. So look forward. There's a couple other more recent films we're going to do. We've got one planned next month, so we'll get to that. And hopefully Tara's a bit more positive on that one.
Oh, yeah. We'll see.
I love how you always
I gave this one a 7.
You play good cop until it's something I like, and then all of a sudden...
I was very positive on this review.
I'm only kidding, because whenever I'm like mildly negative, you're like, why do you hate this, Peter? You hate this, don't you? You just hate this. You've done that before.
You were too hard on Moonfall.
No, Moonfall was actual garbage. Like, Moonfall's shit, but like
That was
other
so
movies that I'm more in the middle on. Anyway, that has been the show. I'm going to make Tara pose for the thumbnails. One last little thing. So here we go. 3, 2... I don't even know what you're going to pull out for this. 1, pose!
It's my pondering face.
Yeah.
Is it no good?
No, that's fine. We can go with it. Maybe I'll put like a fireman's hat on you or something as a photo shot.
Sure. I can do the side shot.
No, don't do the side shot. The
Give
profile
me a scar.
the profile shots are so hard to like deal with. You're lucky I got a Predator mask on you for that AVP review.
Oh, yeah. That was a good thumbnail.
It was hard to find a Predator mask on profile. But anyway, that's the show. That is the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Hopefully you had fun with us debating this very different type of film, very different from Moonfall, and
If you enjoyed it, watch Demon Seed.
and AVPR, or just AVP. Sorry, AVPR still to come. That's coming soonish. But thank you for joining us once again. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction. Remember to like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, and give us 5 stars and a review on iTunes wherever you get your podcast from. But that is us. So keep watching science fiction and computer ad salsa.